Hello and welcome to Jurisedge Academy's YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about 6-month strategy for candidates who are appearing for CLAT PG 2023 examination. So now that we are done with the 2022 CLAT, let's take a look at 2023, which is the next exam. CLAT has already issued the dates for this examination. So opposed to the yearly schedule of May for conducting the exam of CLAT, this year CLAT is going to happen on 18th December 2022. So you have roughly 6 months, actually lesser than 6 months for preparing for this exam. So today we are going to talk about how to go about CLAT 2023, what are the areas that you should be focusing upon, and what should be your general strategy now that you have around 6 months to prepare for this exam. So first dilemma I think which many candidates who are going to appear in 2023 will face is whether they should focus on concepts or should they read more recent judgments. So if you look at the syllabus and the pattern as given by CLAT, you will see that they definitely want to test your knowledge of recent judgments. But having said that, if you take a look at last 3 years paper, that is 2020, 2021 and 2022, you'll find that the questions are divided between concepts and recent judgments. So today we are going to see which part you should be focusing on while preparing for 2023 and how should you divide your time between such a huge syllabus and on top of it covering recent judgments as well. So first focus that you should be having should primarily revolve around these 4 things. First is conceptual clarity. That is basically your bare act and the knowledge of theory related to all important subjects. Next is you should put smart emphasis on all areas of law that are given in the subject, because if you take a look at the pattern and the kind of questions that they have tested, you will see that they are now branching out to cover as many subjects as they can. So there is emphasis on CRPC, evidence law, family law, environmental law, public international law, areas which are very vast but also equally important. So you need to understand the relevance of the subjects and you have to give devoted time to all of them. Next is constant revision. So if you are taking in all this information, if you are reading your bare act, if you are reading your theory, if you are reading so many subjects for CLAT, what is going to make you stand out and actually retain all that information is revision. So it is important that you make your preparation in such a manner wherein you are constantly revising whatever you are reading. Lastly, frequent practice. Now this is something which is not particular to this examination. If you're preparing for any competitive exam, you should be frequently practicing on the pattern that is there for this exam. So in later part of this video, we'll also see what all sources you can use to frequently practice. So firstly, we are going to talk about conceptual clarity. For conceptual clarity, I think many candidates mistake it to understand it in a manner that they have to read a lot. Conceptual clarity is all about 2 things. One is the bare act. Bare act is something which should be the most important thing for you. Second is any one good source for theory, because even when you are reading the bare act, to understand the landmark judgments or to understand doctrines associated with it or to understand other associated theory, you need to rely on one good source. It could be either any book which is available in the market for LLM preparation, or you can refer to any one good source. It could also be the notes from your college or from when you read the subject. So it could be anything depending on what you can find, but ensure that you only rely on one good source and do not branch out to relying on 2 books or 3 books or more than that, because ultimately your idea is to understand the bare act and to retain all that information. So for that you should also make personal notes so that when you are revising, it is easier for you and you are limited in scope so that you don't get overwhelmed with all that information when you actually sit for revision. Next is covering full syllabus. Now you know that it is not humanly possible to cover all subjects that are given in CLAT's syllabus website. But if you understand the relevance of all subjects and if you understand the probability of something coming, then it would be easier to cover full syllabus as per the weightage that you know in which they are important. So there are some subjects which are definitely more important. For example, constitutional law, criminal law, jurisprudence, public international law, family law. You know that these areas are frequently tested in all LLM entrance exams, and that is why they are of course more important. But then you should also understand how to cover the remaining portion. So for example, company law or taxation or labor law, you need to understand that you have to be very limited in your scope while preparing these subjects, and you also have to ensure that you are focusing on areas that are probable to come. So for example, in 2022, when they asked questions on taxation law, it was because there was a recent important judgment on that point. So you have to do an analysis of that, and only on that analysis you should proceed based on the relevance and probability of any subject. Next is constant revision. This applies for all competitive exams. That constant revision is the key to success in any competitive exams. So you should be focusing on the BEAR Act and other concepts for which you should ideally be making your own notes. Next, we come to frequent practice. Again, this is something which anybody who has appeared in a competitive exam will suggest to you, that the other key apart from revision to success in a competitive exam is solving as many questions on that pattern as you can find. So for that, you can either join a mock test series for any of the platforms that are there, or if you do not want to do that, you can also practice previous year papers. You can practice on mock tests, and you can even practice on previous year papers from different competitive exams. So for example, if you can find a book which has questions on LLM entrance exams or judicial service exams, so either way, it's your choice as to how you want to practice, but ensure that you are actually practicing MCQs, ideally on the latest pattern. If not, you can still go to allied law examinations to do this. Now we come to recent judgments, because till now we have covered how to cover the theory part and how revision is important and how to practice MCQs on the recent pattern. Now we come to the other important part of the syllabus, that is recent judgments. Now if you look at past 3-year papers, you will see that the importance of recent judgments has varied, in the sense that in 2020 there were a lot of direct questions from the findings of the recent cases, whereas in the last 2 years, 2021 and 2022, there were passages on recent judgments, but the questions that were attached to them could be independently answered as well. So there is no one answer as to how important recent judgments are, but it is for sure that the kind of questions that you might be getting would largely depend on what is going on recently. So how to cover recent judgments? First is that start only after you have a good grasp over basic concepts. Only when you are done with important subjects like constitutional law, criminal law, family law, environmental law, contract law, once you're done with them, only then move on to the recent judgments, because judgments in essence are a discussion of the basics only. So unless your basics are clear, reading recent judgments will not really help you. Second, cover judgments from last 1 to 1.5 years. See, now there are of course chances that they may ask you judgments from previous years as well, but there has to be some finite space that you need to create for covering judgments, otherwise the syllabus will really go out of hand. So ensure that you cover judgments for the last 1 to 1.5 years. You can refer to online sources like Live Law or our videos where we discuss monthly important judgments. So ensure that you are covering only the important ones, because otherwise it will become very bulky for you. Lastly, always make notes for your revision of case laws, because case laws are huge, and once you are done reading them, at the time of revision, you might not be able to collect all that information. So it is advisable that whenever you read a case law, make a brief summary of it for yourself, which includes the facts of the case, the laws involved, and the findings of the case. So always make sure that you are making notes so that it is easier for you in the revision. Now coming to the timeline. So ideally, it depends on person to person as to how they want to spread out their preparation, what suits best for them. But we are providing you with a timeline. You can of course make adjustments to that. It is advisable that you cover your basics in the first 3 months of your preparation, not more than that. 3 months should be dedicated to the basics of all important subjects. So you can take July to September to cover all the basics. Next 2 months, that is October and November, should be reserved for recent judgments and for constant revision of whatever you have read in the previous 3 months. Lastly, some 15-16 days of December should be utilized strictly for revision and for practicing MCQs or mock tests or whatever you prefer. So ideally, this is how you should be dividing your preparation so that there is equal emphasis on all areas, and so that you don't leave important chunks of your preparation for the last of the month. So this brings us to the end of our video. We have a official Telegram channel for daily subject-wise MCQs. If you are interested, if you are preparing for 2023 examination, do join it from the link given in the description box. If you like this video, please like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.